Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about uh, the Big 12 being a basketball conference with a football problem. And the problem is, from top to bottom, there's, they're interchangeable. And same with the basketball schools. I mean, you look at Villanova, how they can win national championships without having, a stellar football program. Is the Big 12 going to be like the old Big East? We're going to talk about it. So we also have on the show today Frank Fear. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you. I'm filling in for Joey, obviously, who's very busy getting ready for tomorrow's show.
Yeah, tomorrow's show is going to be the mega huge extravaganza celebrating Dale Wolfley, and we just it's amazing the love that's getting put back. Joey's reached out, and the people that have responded, it just warms your heart to see the fact that everybody just what they thought of Dale. And you have up there the 2024 Polar Plunge, Saturday the 24th. That's this Saturday at Sheet Lake at the Dockside Grill. You can register at 10 a.m. There's a costume contest at 12:30. The plunge is at 1. The link is attached there. Guys, go on, register. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Team Wolfman 2024 Polar Plunge. This will be the first year without Dale. And, he was a huge, had a huge heart, and he wanted, this money's going to go to the Special Olympics. It's near and dear to my heart. And it's a good cause. Just go out, even if you don't want to wear a costume or get wet, go out and see people have fun. And it's going to be, and you know what? It might not be too frigid. I think it's going to be in the 40s or 50s, but that water's going to be cold.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, what's up there right now, if you can't go, and this is for the colleagues not only in West Virginia but all over the Big 12. Dale was an icon, and you can give directly to the West Virginia Special Olympics. The link is right there. Go fund me. I've given, and it's just a great event, and it's going to be very emotional, as you said, because it's the first time without Dale, who died tragically of a heart attack in his mid-50s, larger than life. And we had a great show last night with his family. Joey's getting ready for the great show tomorrow with athletes and video clips. And so we say hello to you, Joey. We miss you tonight, but we look forward to having you and your guests tomorrow. And there's Joey right there.
Hey, Joey. So, I've seen a lot of posts just poo-pooing, hey, Jackson Johnson. Yeah, he also, Jackson put the link for on YouTube there. So please, in the comments, you can see that link. So this has been the first couple days where I haven't seen an article or anything that hasn't just totally crapped on the Big 12 or West Virginia. And by putting West Virginia, like doing the tier system that I saw a few days ago, that article we chatted about it in our Monday show. I wanted to just talk about the Big 12 as a whole, and maybe it's just because I'm a Mountaineer fan that I'm taking my skin's too thin, and maybe it's just because it's just so much parity. And from top to bottom in the Big 12, there's not much separation between the schools. And I'm going to pull up some numbers and talk about some numbers here. If you talk about the top earners in all of college football, it would be Ohio State at $250 million. That's $250 million. And then number 2 is is Texas, which is now their team I consider now to be in the SEC, but they're 239 million. So they're literally $12 million below what Ohio State is. Then it goes down to Alabama at 214. So there's a big difference between 1 and 3. And then from 4 to 5, it's like $7 million. So once you get down to like the 35 ranking for amount of money coming into the college program, it's only their variance is only $1 million. So there's not much parity between 30 and 45. It might be like $2 million. Okay. But the haves and the have-nots, the Big 12, the first school that comes in on the list, guys, is Arizona at 31. And they're having financial problems. At least that's what we've seen or heard. Yeah. And then you have Arizona State at 33, Kansas at 35, Iowa State at 39, Texas Tech at 41, WVU and Oklahoma State are at 45 and 46. Colorado's at 51, Central Florida's at 52, Cincinnati's at 55, Houston's at 56. So guys, the schools that I thought would be higher, your West Virginia, your Oklahoma State, heck, even Cincinnati, I thought they'd be a little higher. They're not as high as Iowa State or Kansas or Arizona State. So, the difference between Arizona State and West Virginia is $16 million. So that's a lot of money. And for the product that's going on the field at Arizona State, as far as wins, we'll just talk about the product. The business is winning, and are you, if you're doing a quarterly report, are you telling your shareholders you're doing well or not doing well? And Arizona State hasn't been paying any dividends. So, Arizona had a good season last year. So here is that's a great visual for us, and it shows what the operating margin is. So with that being said, the revenue that's coming in, I foresee the divide getting even bigger. Okay, so the top half, the top 30 or 40, are going to start pulling ahead. It's going to be a huge bell curve trending up, and then the gap is going to get wider. That bell curve is going to get wider and wider. Guys, it's not great. It's great if you like parity and you like competitive football, okay? Because the Big 12 is going to have it. But, you're not going to see that in the product on the field. Frank, do you think this is going to hurt football when that divide starts to spread between the haves and the have-nots? Or is there going to be parameters put in by, through legislation to kind of put a salary cap on what you can spend on a program?
The analogy to me is sort of like Formula One. I don't know how many fans out there follow Formula One. I didn't until a couple of our writers at the sports column, both domestically and internationally, began to write articles on Formula One. So I began to watch, and they've got teams like Mercedes, Ferrari, and so on. And the reason I think that there's an analogy is that every year after the season is over, all the teams improve their car. And so the other teams don't know what they're going to see on the track until that next season. And a couple of years ago, Red Bull had just improved their car significantly. Mercedes had owned the circuit for a number of years. And then when Red Bull came out with their new edition, they blew everyone away. And so that's where we are now in college football, because what we've been talking about so far is the picture right now, but we know it's going to change. And there's already tremendous separation financially, clout, between the big two, the Big Ten and the SEC, and the ACC and the Big 12. We know that, but we don't know what the future is going to be. In other words, in that analogy with Formula One, we don't know what kind of car SEC and Big Ten is going to put on the track, so to speak, or on the gridiron in 2025, 2026. But this is what I think, and you and I were talking about this before the show. At least right now, and I think in the foreseeable future, the best conference in terms of competitive equality, that's probably not the right word, but top to bottom quality, is the Big 12, both in football and basketball. That's both a positive thing for the fans because you get to see great football, but it's also a problem because they beat each other up. Now, what happened with TCU, I think, is nothing more than amazing. A team that literally came out of nowhere. If I'm wrong, I don't think I'm wrong. They had a losing season and then went to the college football championship a couple of years ago. And then they dropped back this year. But the bottom line is the Big 12, I think, will find a way to be competitive. And I think the wild card in all of this, I think, actually is Nick Saban. What college football has not had is an incredibly respected insider who commits himself to what Saban calls meaningful change, and that's going to occur. But I think one thing we know for sure, going back to the Formula One example, okay, Mercedes may improve their car, maybe not enough to challenge Red Bull. Ferrari might do the same thing. Aston Martin is not going to do that, and neither is Williams, which is another one of the cars or teams in the race. The Big 12 is not going to be able to catch up, given the nature of the schools in the Big 12, and I'll stop with this. Or they're not going to be able to catch up with Ohio State. They're not going to be able to catch up with Texas. Texas was in the fold, now out. And so as a consequence, it's not going to be a matter of money. It's going to be other things that make it that level the playing field. And I think the 12-team college football playoff is one of those. And I think many of the fans know, they're already talking about expanding that 3 or 4 years down the road. I think it's 14 teams.
Wow.
16 maybe. I can't remember. But they're already talking about expanding it. And they just approved, not long ago, going to 12 teams. Mm-hmm. So I think the bottom line is, I think you're on the right path. And what you said earlier really is important. The Big 12 doesn't need wads of cash to be able to win March Madness. Your Villanova example, we were talking about that before the show, is a great example. They have a football team, but it's not a major team. You looked at Florida Atlantic. Last year was in the Final Four. Not a major player. San Diego State, good conference in the Mountain West, but not a major team, not in a Power 5 conference. And so is it, or 4 now, I guess. The bottom line is you can do that. So I think with the proper leadership and with some breaks from the outside, the one thing I would say I would be a little bit worried about, we may be going to mega conferences beyond what we have now, but I think that really can't control that. Commissioner, I don't think the Big 12 commissioner, certainly he has a lot of say in it, but I think that it's going to take good old-fashioned leadership and, like always, I know in my career, some breaks to be able to be competitive. But hey, Big 12, best conference, competition, football and basketball, period.
And they're the best conference, but I have the numbers for what the basketball program brought in last year. And you, Frank, you would be surprised. And I want you to guess, where do you think Kansas falls in the they're in the top 20, but where do they fall as far as revenue? Where do you think? Take a guess.
Among the major college teams?
Yes.
Oh, I would be a bit surprised if and I don't know. I don't know the answer. I didn't know I was going to get this question. So for the viewers out there,
I did it on purpose.
This is not a setup. I'm just guessing. I'm going to say about 22.
You're pretty close. They are right ahead of Texas at 16.
There you go.
With now Texas has 18 million. Villanova is at 18. number 18 with 17 million. Kansas has just $300,000 more than what Texas receives at 18.8. So, you would think that because those three teams we just talked about, Kansas, Texas, and Villanova, are constantly in the Elite Eight or the Final Four, that they would be up at the top of the list, but they're not. The top of the list is Louisville at 43 million, followed by Duke at 36, Syracuse at 31, and Syracuse is their football program. I think they have to give tickets away. They're not what they used to be. Kentucky's at 30 million. Now I could see Kentucky being in the top 5. Illinois, it was their years they don't make the tournament. Indiana is 6th. North Carolina at 7. Ohio State at 8. Now Ohio State brings in 24 million. Okay. But guys, I'm going to go down the list here. North Carolina 7, Ohio State 8. Arizona is the highest Big 12 school at 9. You have to go the whole way down to, my goodness, I'm scrolling. Iowa State at 29 to get another team. And then you go down to 36, Oklahoma State. And then it just drops off. And you guys, Texas Tech's at 52, and it only goes to 55. So the Big 12 is not making a whole ton of cash on basketball. And when I was looking at this for today's show, I thought that these schools, the Big 12, because the product is so good and there's so much parity, I thought they would blow everyone out, blow the doors off everyone. And I was wrong. So it's not a Big 12 is not a basketball conference with a football problem. It is a great conference with a money problem.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about both of those number lists is that there's not a direct relationship between how much money you bring in and how many championships you win. Texas A&M is the poster child for that. In football, there's sometimes actually overall athletic revenues. It's not surprising to see Texas A&M at the top of the list or in the top 3. And when was the last time that Texas A&M was relevant? They continue to struggle, certainly in basketball, but definitely in football. But what money gives you is political clout. You've got very, very powerful alums. You look at the Houston situation. Without the owner of the Houston Rockets, would Houston be in the Big 12? They applied twice before and were rejected. So I think his name is Fertitta. So the bottom line is that, that, again, those are the things that I think are in West Virginia's favor, because West Virginia is simply not going to be able to raise the funds to get up to compete with the Louisvilles of basketball and Ohio State's of football. The amount of money that Michigan brings in for football is larger than most, I would say almost every, if not every, mid-major athletic program. I mean, $40-50 million a year just for football. It's amazing. But you would expect that. And that's before they won the national championship. So you're right on target.
So you would have to add lines 1 through line 18, all of the revenue, basically the top 20 basketball schools, to equal the revenue of just Ohio State.
Yeah.
That says a lot. That's how powerful Ohio State is.
That's right. And I was going to say, if you look at what Jackson has up there, Jackson's one of the smartest guys in the business. And it says if it comes down to the Big 12 and the ACC, the Big 12 will kick ACC's rear 9 times out of 10. And I would put a footnote on that, Jackson, my friend. That is if the ACC continues to exist. The word out there in a number of places around the country is that Florida State, we know this, is negotiating. They're ready to bolt. And the odds are you're going to see them go to the Big 10 because that gives the Big 10 an actual mooring in the South and Florida, which is the linchpin athletically of the South, along with Georgia. And, the other thing politically, University of Florida, I'm sure, does not want to see Florida State in the SEC. It's like Michigan tried to keep Michigan State out of the Big Ten. That was 60 years ago, 70 years ago almost. But the bottom line, if that happens, it's going to be tough to keep the ACC together. I mean, really tough, because there aren't a lot of schools that you can grab in now. What do? You bring in Oregon State, Washington State. Do you elevate a Memphis? It gets to the point that politically it's really dicey. So
it's going to be like climbing up a slide.
Yeah,
at the park, one of those greased metal ones. It's just what's going to happen. And we talked about this briefly last week, but I can't stop harping about it because it's so true. If Florida State is the pebble that's going to cause the avalanche. I guess because what's going to happen? Florida State goes to the Big Ten. SEC is like, oh my gosh, we got to get 2 schools, and then the Big Ten's like, we got to get a school. So I see 8 schools being plucked from either the ACC or the Big 12 to fill those voids. And I think Louisville's one of them, based off of what they bring some money in. I don't know where Louisville goes. Does the Big 12 try to snatch them? And the Big 12 is going to be doing the same thing. So you're going to have, and then does the Big 12, Frank, I'm going to ask you this. Does the Big 12 lose any schools to the SEC?
No, I think the one thing that the Big 12 could do is, and everybody's been talking about this, you've talked about it, Joey, we've all talked about it. I grew up when, even before the Big East, there was called Eastern football with Pitt, Penn State, Syracuse, West Virginia, Boston College, Virginia Tech. It was great. And I think we may go back to the future. And if what we talk about with the ACC disintegrating, I think you're going to see a Big 12 East and a Big 12 West, and you're going to see school that makes Virginia Tech, Pitt, Syracuse very, very, very attractive. And then you've got West Virginia, you've got Central Florida, you've got Cincinnati already, and now what you're doing is you're setting yourself up. This is a fan's delight, because then what you do is Pitt doesn't schedule West Virginia by convenience. They'll play each other. You're going to see West Virginia play Syracuse again. Boston College is going to be in that mix. The problem is going to be schools like Wake Forest, Duke. That's the problem. The good news is the Big Ten is so academically oriented. The 3 schools that the Big Ten would grab for academics alone are Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke. They would just grab them because of academics. So,
what about Miami? Do you think Miami would be attractive to the Big 12? I think it would.
It would be, but I think even more so to the Big Ten, because Miami just got admitted to and I know there was some misinformation on one of our nights here is that
right.
Florida State did not get into the American Association of Universities.
Miami did.
Miami did. And so as a consequence, that's very, I was at a Big Ten university as a faculty member and administrator for almost 40 years. The Big Ten's not going to screw around with academics. Only high-ranking schools are admitted, and Miami fits that bill. Would they go well in the Big 12? Sure, especially if it's regionalized. And the other thing we got to remember is that, you know this in your home lives. You can't spend the same dollar twice. And if you have 3 kids in the household, that's different from having 5 kids in the household. And how long and how much can we expect the media pie to keep on growing and growing and growing and growing? I mean, Notre Dame's in trouble. How long is NBC, which now is telecasting the Big Ten, are they going to want to stick with a Notre Dame program that hasn't won a national championship, in 30 years? I think Lou Holtz was the last one. And so,
Notre Dame fans are aging out. I hate to say it, but they are. This isn't 1988 anymore. You're not just tuning in and seeing Notre Dame every week, Yeah.
I like what Jackson's staying here. I think that's right. And also, we want to put this back up. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah,
Well, you
that's
got
right.
to think some of the highest rated basketball tournaments had Cinderellas making a big push. You know, if you look back historically, your Gonzagas, your James, all those teams that made pushes deep into the tournament. When Butler, made their run the first time, but not that when they made the run to the championship and lost, but that first run they made, I think the Elite Eight. But that gets people. It makes it interesting. But Jackson Johnson says, I think we will
Yeah,
see Notre Dame, USC on NBC every year, like we see Texas, Oklahoma on ABC and Ohio
yeah.
State, Michigan on Fox.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I mean, you got to. This is something I think I always tell people to understand where college football is and basketball and where it's going. You don't only have to think like an athletic director; you have to think like a media mogul,
Right.
because basically it's become fundamentally marketized. It's a commercial offering, and that's where they're giving all this money. They got to get something in return, and that's again. And you brought it up weeks ago. That puts West Virginia in pretty good shape because, from a fan base point of view, we're number one. And I said this on our show a couple of weeks ago. You could say, well, not anymore. Colorado's number one, but I'll repeat something that guys have heard me say: Colorado and Prime, Colorado and Prime. They're like this. If Prime were to leave Colorado tomorrow, Colorado does not have the largest fan base. A
No.
lot of people around the country. I know a lot of my African American friends, some of whom they're not even football fans, follow Colorado because of Prime. And
I,
so, whereas West Virginia has a much more stable statewide and national group, it's about 1.3, 1.4 million fan base.
there's a comedian, a female comedian that has a YouTube channel, and she has a flying WV like tin up in the corner of where her guests sit. So you see the Mountaineer logo everywhere. Now, like Jackson Johnson says, if Pitt gets added to the Big 12, the backyard
Yeah,
brawl needs to be on Thanksgiving or Black Friday. I agree. My wife agrees. Some of her fondest memories. She's not a Mountaineer. She went to IUP, but she loved going to the backyard brawl on Thanksgiving, guys.
yeah, it's great thoughts, good thoughts, really good thoughts. And I think, and I hate to bring this up, but I think that the allure of a non-power team just goes through the roof because of gambling, because of FanDuel, because of all the other platforms for gambling. It just goes. Think about St. Peter's run a couple years ago. By the way, if you could look at my article on the sports column every year, twice a year, I go through all the mid majors and basically list the ones that I think could be the Davids this year. And you mentioned well witnessed Final Fours. Still number one of all time is the Michigan State Indiana Magic Johnson Larry Bird
Yep.
in 1979. And I'm here to tell you, Indiana State has the best team this year since 1979.
Really? That's
they were
fantastic.
they were ranked in the top 25 until they got knocked off, actually twice in 1 week. But they're good.
I love March Madness. In fact, I just on my Facebook feed, my son had a birthday and it showed a picture of him. We went to the tournament. We sat beside the general manager of Cleveland Cavaliers. My son had a Cavaliers jersey on. He said, "You like the Cavaliers?" And he showed him his coat, and he, took a picture with him, talked to him. It was really nice. But I love the fact that you go to these games, these tournament games, and you don't know who's going to make a run. And it always happens that a highly seeded team gets dumped early, and then you don't know what's going to happen. But we will see this type of just the interest will be peaked because come football season,
That's right.
we're going to be watching to see who 9, 10, 11, 12, those last 4 or 5 teams get in. Everybody's going to be sitting there watching the TV. That's going to put eyeballs on televisions, is going to put eyeballs on phones. Is everybody's going to be just waiting for that. And if it goes to 14, then the college football product gets a little bit better from the days, because what we have to make up for is the fact that we don't have a vested interest. We don't have an Owen Schmidt, or we don't have a Randy Moss, or a or you know, like somebody that has been with the program for years. You know, just it doesn't happen. You don't know, like going in, like the jersey numbers. You know, you buy a jersey number, you got to buy a new jersey every year because you don't know who that player is. So it's going to be great for the product. By putting a commissioner in at the helm might help all of college football. Yeah. If not, you're going to see SEC and the Big Ten not only take their toys and play, but they're going to pick the sandbox up and move it too.
Yeah. And I think this year, and I'm not alone in this, watch Memphis. They dismantled Iowa State in the Liberty Bowl. They've got their quarterback coming back. They have a really good team. And I think I really expect Memphis to be in that college football playoff. And I wouldn't want to, if that's true, I wouldn't want to play them in the first round.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about some Cinderellas. Let's talk some slippers. Where does the slipper fit on Big 12 teams? Let's talk. I'm going to give you mine. I'll let you think about it so you can give me yours. So I think the slipper, everybody wants Deion Sanders to wear a slipper, and they want to see Prime. The national media would love it. ESPN would love it. I would enjoy it. I'm not a huge Prime fan. I would like to see Colorado do well, you know, maybe get into the playoffs. Another team that I think was just that close from being a great team was UCF. Last year, they were just, you know, sometimes luck just doesn't go the right way, and then trouble comes in threes. And I think they had 3 games where the wind could have blown the other direction, and they could have maybe got a call that got a first down, got 7 points instead of 3 points, and they could have won those games. So UCF would be number 2. Now, everybody, I've been pooping on this team. I've been putting them down in the bottom of my tier when I tier the teams in the Big 12, and that would be Arizona. Everybody loves Arizona. I don't see it. I don't see a new coach coming in, but I guess the slipper could fit on them. Utah, everybody's high on Utah. The slipper could fit on them. There is 5 teams out of the Big 12 that could have a slipper put on it, and they could make it into the playoffs. And the last one that I'm going to talk about are the Mountaineers. And all they have to do is they could lose 2 games in the Big 12, win the Big 12 championship if they beat Penn State. If they lose to Penn State, they got to run a lot cleaner schedule to run it out and win out. And then, you know, but those are my guys. That's my slipper pick. Those are my Cinderellas for Big 12 football.
Yeah. I'm going to start in the other direction first. I think, and this has been well discussed on this show and others, but especially on this show, I think Arizona's, the predictions for Arizona this year are way out of whack. They lost their coach. As you mentioned, they're in deep financial trouble as an institution. They just got a new athletic director from Missouri. She's very good. And as West Virginians know, there's talk about Ren Baker possibly replacing her in Columbia, Missouri. But the bottom line is they lost so many players in the portal. In fact, if we just look at this, we'll see it here. We showed this on our show the other day, and you look there. Where's Arizona? The green are the schools that just are coming into the Big 12, and the red are the schools that came in this past season. Look at Arizona there. Let me push this up a little bit so I can actually see it a little bit better myself. Arizona down there, look at that. On3 is the best recruiting, I think, portal source out there. On3.com, strongly recommended to you. We don't get compensated. But if you look at the ranking of the On3 ranked the schools in terms of portal in, portal out. And ranked 14th in the Big 12 is Arizona, 62 nationally.
Yeah,
Why?
they lost a lot of kids went to Washington with their coach.
Yeah,
This
they had 9
looks a lot like
transfers.
my top 1 to 15, other than Colorado and Kansas, should be switched.
Well, look at that. 9 in, but 23 out. And
Wow.
look at West Virginia. They lost 16, but they got a higher score for their players coming in than the players that they lost. And I would say the same thing for. Let me get this down here so we get this off. There we go. Same thing for recruiting. We also showed this a couple weeks ago, and I'll continue with this list. The reason I put it up there is that UCF, being in higher education and being in administration, it's clear that some schools care about athletics much more than others.
Right.
I think Houston cares a lot about it, but they're just very difficult sledding, attracting good quality athletes to play at U of H when you got Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Christian Tech. But look at UCF up there. That's recruiting. The window just closed about a week or so ago. They're ranked second in the Big 12 by rivals. This is rivals. Texas Tech also kicked butt. I think you're going to see Texas Tech now viewing itself as a chance to be the top Big 12 team in Texas. I think UCF is there. I think Houston is in trouble. It's going to take a while there. I'm disappointed by Baylor. I think you need a strong Baylor, but the teams that I would look at would be UCF, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. And I would say the team that I'm not sure about yet is Texas Christian. That's a school that invests, I think, in terms of per capita student, by far the most in athletics of any Big 12 school. And the school that I can't figure out is Oklahoma State. They seem to have lost their mojo. They're not doing very well in recruiting. I just don't know. But I think for me, it's UCF, Texas Tech, and everybody's poo-pooing West Virginia. And I go, okay, keep on doing that. If you're right, if West Virginia can beat Penn State, and I think they will, I think people will start getting ready for that game probably next Saturday. Boy, it'll be amazing.
Now, Kansas and Kansas State, I excluded from the Cinderella because I think they have a legit chance, and they wouldn't be a surprise in my eyes. But Don Johnson, you have to put the Mountaineers in the slipper group. The offense will have to come back and be shocked if the defense isn't much better. We have as good a chance any. Yes, they have some good guys coming. We talked on Tuesday, the linebacker that came in, the 4-star. They're in the mix for a lot of talent, and we'll see.
Yeah, that new defensive back from Northwestern comes in.
Yeah, Northwestern. They got 2 guys from Northwestern, so that says a lot. And that comes a week after I was poo-pooing the fact that they're going out and getting kids that really haven't played against, tier 1 programs. But I
would say too. Last year at this time, we were all saying we're not sure that the culture in Morgantown is the blue collar West Virginia, Don Nealon, Bobby Bowden, you name it, Rich Rod. But boy, that's changed. I think that for a variety of reasons, what Neil Brown has done, and I think, my own opinion, I expressed this again last night on our Wolf show. I think Wolf had a lot to do with that. He kept on harping on it. He made it very clear. He's demonstrative, declarative. It's a good culture. He's bringing in his guys. He's got great wideouts. I think he's got the Pat Mahomes of college football as a quarterback, 2 great running backs. And he's building the defense, that secondary. He needs some linebackers. But the bottom line is we all agree, and obviously we're biased, but I'd be grossly disappointed if last year was a one-off for the Mountaineers. I think they should do very well this year.
I'm interested to see and hear your input about Ren Baker. Do you think he's going to stay in Morgantown, or is he going to go to the SEC, which I don't really see Missouri as that big of a jump, other than they'll have a little bit more money than us. But, I don't know what's in his heart, but and if he does jump, does he make the pick for the basketball head coaching position before he leaves, or do you leave that to the new athletic director?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. He's from that neck of the woods. He's been there. He's been in Oklahoma. It's going to be tough. If when I was in higher education, faculty members and administrators were of one of two ilks, so to speak. There were the people who were basically focusing on their career, and they would be a couple years here, a couple years there, and it would always be a move up. And there'd be others who I call localites. They're in East Lansing, their blood was green. Ann Arbor was blue. It's scarlet in Ohio State, and it didn't make any difference who came, whoever asked them, they were going to stay put because they wanted to be legacy people. And I don't know personally, Ren Baker, if he wants to be in the same category as Freddie Schaus, who was an AD here, or others who are way, way up there. I don't want to miss any others, so I won't say.
Along.
Oh, yeah, passed along to me. Did so many great things. I know that there was a lot of controversy, but Red Brown was another one. Legs Hawley was another one. West Virginia's had great ADs, and a lot of them came from being great coaches.
Right.
I mean, Red Brown was a great basketball coach in the 50s and then became athletic director. So I don't know, but I'll tell you what, with the way athletics are, if you are looking at the risk-reward ratio, if a Big Ten school called or if an SEC school called, they're probably going to give you an offer you can't refuse. And from a career point of view, but will just remain to be seen.
I agree. I think it would be. I lean towards the thought process that for Ren Baker, it's closer to home. He's still young. His kids are still young. They're going to move. His bags are packed. He's just waiting for the next step on his career ladder. My opinion.
Yeah, well, that may happen. And then the question is, you go back to look. But the good thing is there are a lot of really good athletic directors and coaches in the group of five. Yes. I mean, there's all this talk about Byington, the coach at James Madison, maybe being a front runner for the Mountaineers basketball position. And so you basically go to the group of five and you basically recruit someone to come in. And I know a lot of people poo-poo that, but that's the way that organizations work a lot of times.
Yeah, I like Fort Atlantic's coach. There's so many names that we're not going to talk about West Virginia stuff. We're not going to dwell on that. But, Jackson Johnson says you can also tune in the Big 12 Fan Zone on the Big 12 football, voice of college football. And he has the link for us below. There's so much going on, with the recruiting just kind of wrapping up. And then you have a window opening in 6 weeks after spring ball's over. So there's so much more to come with where these teams are going to kind of fall. You can't just have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. No, and I've done that here on the show.
No, that article turned my stomach. I'll tell you what, I've mentioned this on my show, and I think you guys have too. The landscape has changed to the point that these coaches now, after spring ball, they've got re-recruiting to do. In other words, just because someone's gone through, even as a starter, in spring ball, doesn't mean that player's going to be there. I've mentioned this before, and I'm sorry if it's boring, but Michigan State got devastated last year when their starting quarterback and their top wide receiver, after the spring game, left for Auburn, the quarterback, and the wide receiver for Florida State. Michigan State couldn't keep them there. So just because someone's at West Virginia now, even if that person is signed with, you can't tell what's going to happen. So you got to
Uh,
wait. You got to wait a few weeks after spring ball.
you buy your sweetheart a big thing of chocolates on Valentine's Day, and the day after you have to put rose petals on the all over the place. Like you're still courting after that ring's on the finger, right? It's just
What do you think about what
these coaches are working.
What about Timothy's question?
I wonder if they're going to keep Josh or are they going to find a new head back? Well, Tim Green, I'm going to be honest with you. Josh has, I went to the game last week, and they got shellacked last Saturday. But the product in Morgantown at the Coliseum is as good as anywhere in the nation. Okay. There were butts in the seats, great atmosphere. The product wasn't quite that great. Now, they won 2 nights ago, and they looked a lot better, but it's not all Josh's fault. Okay. And it's really tough if you can put any of the top 20 coaches into his situation, and I don't think they would have done much better. Maybe 1 or 2 wins. So if they give him another year, I would be pleased, but they're not. It's not going to happen. They're going to hire a new coach. That's my opinion, but I have very strong feelings. Now, Kelly, I would love to see Huggins back, and that's what I would love. Let him finish his career here. People make mistakes. That's not going to happen if Gordon Gee is still the president and Ren Baker is the athletic director. But that would be the quickest, easiest path to get West Virginia back up to where they were. If you get a new coach in there, it's going to be 5 years before you see. With Huggins comes in, I think in 2 years he can have the ship righted. But my opinion.
What I would say to Kelly is what I've said before, is that you can't. We look at these things from the eyes of a fan. That's not the way administrators think. They do not look at things exclusively from a fan perspective. Nope. They've got to manage the politics of fans, but they look at things. If West Virginia were to bring Bob Huggins back, it would be front page news among their peers, and West Virginia would basically lose all kinds of credibility. Because you remember, forget about basketball. Huggins transgressed twice in a very short period of time, and that's just not the message that higher education needs to send. So I would be absolutely dumbfounded if Bob Huggins ends up back as coach. I think, this is my own opinion, I think he will end up in coaching, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised he'll end up at Louisville. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him.
Good for him.
Louisville is hurting right now, and Bob Huggins could make them. He would be the Pitino. Pitino came back from the dead, so to speak, went to Iona, turned them around, having a little struggle at St. John's, but he's back in the big time. So, and shifting back to football, I think this is a really good point that Don's made here.
I think West Virginia's defense will be a big surprise. Don't forget, yes, we got some great help in the secondary. Yes, three defensive backs in the secondary. 3 is 1 if you're a D-back. You need 3 or 4. So Northwestern, they got some talent from Northwestern, Duquesne. They got that kid from Ohio State that's a thick and rugged young man. I think the one guy from Northwestern has 2 years of eligibility.
He does.
So in the form and mold of Beanie, I hope we get a baller.
Well, let me add to that list, and it's easy to forget him because he got hurt. I think in the spring game, no, it wasn't in the spring game because I talked with his father. It was, I think, in early practice. He's a player by the name of Montre Miller. He came in from Kent State. He was the one that got more of a focus than Beanie Bishop. I saw Beanie, I've mentioned this, at Minnesota because Minnesota played Michigan State.
Right.
I knew he was good. But Montre Miller was the one that I was looking at, and he never got a chance really to play. I think he played, maybe he got hurt early. I can't remember. But the point is, he didn't play much last year. He's coming back. So remember that name, Montre Miller, defensive back.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we've covered a lot of ground this hour. And, we want to also let you guys know tomorrow is a big day. And we have a lot of, Joey has been really working hard. He has a lot of, a lot of surprises in store. So tune in. Frank, that's 7 tomorrow, correct?
Yep.
And, we'll be here again. Frank will be here next Wednesday. I'm going to be off next week. I have to travel for work. So I'm going to try to work my schedule out so I can at least make one show. But yes, Wolf Remembrance, 7 p.m. Friday on the Voice of College Football. So, guys, it's bittersweet, but it makes you kind of happy when you remember, the fantastic things and the things that people are saying when they remember Dale. The fact that his legacy carries on with his great kids and his wife. And so we go to Morgantown. Heck, a guy I work with coached one of Dale's boys, so it's you can't turn anywhere without somebody being impacted from Dale. So with that being said, Frank, do you have anything to add?
Well, I was just going to say, for those of you that didn't get to watch our show live last night, that was the first of the.
Yes.
That's right. Yes. And I'll go back to what Don's saying.
And you had the family on.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's Montre Miller. He did get hurt, and I'm really high on him. Watch him this year. But for those, Timothy, thank you so much. For you, if you didn't watch the first installment of the Wolfman Remembrance, what we try to do is split it. So on Wednesday night on Mountaineer Locker Room, Then and Now, we had the Wolfley family with Kathy Wolfley, the two of the boys, Stone and Maverick, and a bunch of the colleagues from the Monday show on Wolfman's Call. You can see that on the network just by going to the West Virginia channel on the Voice of College Football. It's already up there, archived. And then tomorrow's show is going to be loaded with video and athletes talking about Wolf. So we separated it there. So let me see. We got give the last word. Same here. Yeah, absolutely. And Jackson, we appreciate your support, and Don and Kelly and everybody who was on tonight. Certainly Timothy, and always good working with you, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Frank. Man, I'll tell you what, you're a wealth of knowledge, and I love having you on the show. And I tell you what, Wednesdays is always entertaining, and you learn a lot, and it's just great talking to another Mountaineer fan. And guys, with that, we will see you tomorrow night at 7 on the Voice of College Football.